Hi, I'm Dan Battiste, Director of Administration at Wiser, and welcome to another Wiser Minute. Today, I am going to be talking with you about policy and procedure manuals and why they are important, and some of the topics that you may want to include in yours. Policy and procedure manuals are an important part of any simulation center. They help to lay out the structure of how the simulation center is going to be operated. They also serve as a training tool for new staff members and users of the simulation center. You may ask, why do you need a policy and procedure manual for your simulation center? Well, they allow you to set expectations for the users of the simulation center. For example, the code of conduct, what type of environment they should expect, and the importance of confidentiality. The manual also becomes a tool for training new employees of the simulation center as well as new instructors. The manual also allows you to promote consistency for all users of the center. Also, if you are thinking about going through the Society for Simulations accreditation process, you will also be asked to provide your policy and procedure manual. Probably the hardest part of the process is figuring out where to start. When creating the manual, you need to think of who the audience is. Is it for the users? Is it strictly for the staff? Or is it for both? Once you decide who your audience will be, you will then know which direction you need to take this manual. A good starting point for this manual is seeing if any of the policies that your governing institution uses will fit your needs. For Wiser, we looked at the UPMC and University of Pittsburgh policies to see if any of them were applicable to the simulation center. For example, we looked at the university's IRB policy. Since we are part of the university and follow their rules regarding research, we could infuse the university's policy for the IRB into our manual. Another area to start with when creating your manual is general topics. For example, you could start with the hours of operation for your simulation center and how individuals can contact your center. These two areas will help lay the foundation for your policy and procedure manual. There is some general information that should be included in the beginning of your policy and procedure manual. You should include your mission statement, which is typically a brief statement that describes the purpose of your simulation center. Another area you should include in your general information is the governance structure. This will allow users to understand where the simulation center reports to within the health system or within the university. You should also include a section that has common terminology that is used within the simulation center. An example of this at Wiser is that we call a simulation center room a MET room, which stands for Medical Education Theater. This will allow consistency of nomenclature in your simulation center. And you may also want to include a section of how others can use your simulation center brand. Like in most major companies, a logo or brand can be used in a certain way, and you may want to make sure that holds true for your simulation center, especially when it comes time for research being done in publications that may follow. Other areas you will want to include in your policy and procedure manual are administration. This includes hours of operation of the simulation center and required disclaimers that you may have, for example, latex policy or confidentiality. Next, you'll want to look at how your instructors are going to be trained. This policy is especially important if you do not have full-time instructors on staff and are expecting full-time clinicians to come to your facility to teach. You want to make sure that you establish consistency on how they will be using the center for their teachings. Also think of creating a process that helps to streamline the creation of courses at your center. You will also want to establish policies on how you expect the participants at your simulation center to conduct themselves. For example, you want to make it known that the simulation center does not tolerate inappropriate behavior of participants while they are participating in a course at your center. Establishing policies on how courses will be scheduled is also very important. Will you have a first-come, first-served policy, or is it dependent on which department is contributing the most to your center? These things need to be taken into consideration when creating your manual. Thinking of how your equipment is to be maintained and handled are important policies as well. Will you allow individuals to borrow your equipment? If so, what is the policy for that, and what if they bring it back damaged? Who will pay for it? Establishing these policies up front will help the potential headaches in the future. From an operational side, how will rooms be prepared for a course? Is there a set amount of time set up for each course to include setup and teardown of the course? Who is responsible for running the mannequin during the courses? This is something that should be in your manual as well. If you are a simulation center that is going to be doing research, you want to make sure you have policies of how research is going to be conducted at your facility. How does someone include you in their submission? Is there someone they need to discuss the research with before they submit to the IRB? These are questions that can be answered by a policy. These topics that I've spoken with you about today are just a few of the areas to think about when creating your policy and procedure manual. I hope that you found this Wiser Minute to be helpful. And for a more in-depth look at policy and procedures, please check out our Operational Best Practice for your Simulation Center course and also our Wiser Preceptor program. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the Wiser Minute.